What if you could change your life? What if sorrow could become joy and the darkness the light? What if you could heal not only yourself, but those around you? Well, you can. It's called alchemy. And these are the Alchemy Sisters. Join quantum karmic healer Jenny McDaniel and intuitive empowerment coach Mandy Elam for a magical journey into esoteric spiritual discussions. Brought to you by Heart Over Ego Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Alchemy Sisters. You are here with Mandy and Jenny. Hey Jenny, how you doing?
Doing really good. How about yourself?
Can't complain. I'm excited to be back here with you for episode 4 of the Alchemy Sisters during season 3 here on Heart Over Ego Radio. And I'm excited. I'm really excited for our guest tonight. I have a lot of questions for her that are in alignment with things that have been happening in my life. So I'm looking forward to that. And then I've also been I've been up north in northern Vermont. If you're just tuning in, Jenny and I always kind of like to share where we're at and what the weather's like in the country often. And I've been in northern Vermont, and it's been interesting. It was really cold my first couple days. I woke up to like a negative 14, and then yesterday and today it was like sunny and beautiful and like 45 out. So it's just been fun holding space up in the north.
Down here in New Mexico, we have some beautiful, mild weather. The sun is out. I get to go out with long sleeve shirts. I just went on a little walk through my neighborhood, and it's just as far as the eye can see, open land, and of course some mountains in the backdrop. Beautiful day here in the southwest corners.
Excellent. Well, with no further ado, I would love to bring on our guest tonight. Our guest is Jan Mundo. She is the developer of the Mundo Method and the author of the Headache Healer's Handbook. So welcome, Jan. How are you tonight?
I'm great, Mandy. How are you?
Oh, so well. Where in the country are you calling in from, and what's the weather like over there?
Well, I'm really happy to be with you. I and Jenny. I am in California, Northern California, and it's warm and sunny, so I can't complain. That's from having been an East Coaster for the past 14 years. So.
Excellent. Jan, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, where do I begin? Right now, and for about the past 50 years, I've had this ability and passion as far as being able to help and being able to experience really interesting things on the body and through the body. I've been putting my hands on people's heads and stopping their headaches and migraines, and that's including my own, and working with the sensations of pain and general sensations that one can feel, and working with the cycle of them and really tuning in to this cycle of sensations and being able to quell a headache or migraine in progress. So it's been really interesting.
I'll say. How old were you when you first started to discover that, or when that gift came present?
I was in my early 20s, and I heard of a claim that you could stop a headache or migraine by putting your hands on the front and back of the head. And so I started experimenting with it and seemed to become a magnet for people who had them. And I experimented on my own, which I didn't realize at the time were migraines, and I didn't get them that often until a little later on in life. But it was really interesting. People would just exclaim out of the blue how much pain they were in right in front of me. And I don't think I caused the pain. No, they were having migraines usually, and it was just really fascinating and an experiment for me to be able to help them, and also just see that you could use your touch to change people's pain.
Beautiful. Do you know, have you ever experienced cranial sacral therapy?
I have had a couple of sessions here and there with either colleagues or practitioners. I know something about it, but what I did, and I think I had kind of short demo classes, lectures that I went to. But I think what I'm doing is something different.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it similar or different? Different, okay.
Yeah, it's different in that you're working with the sensations of pain on the head. You're not necessarily working with cerebrospinal fluid, as is my understanding of it.
Mine too. Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like do you feel like this putting your healing hands on people, do you feel like that's more intuitively guided, or you're channeling maybe some Reiki energy? Do you use certain pressure points? I know you developed a method. Maybe you could tell us more about that.
Sure. So also how I got to that place of working with headaches and migraines is really, and since has also been a journey of working with my own pain and also just with my own awareness and different practices that I've studied in and trained in over time. And so it all, I think, plays into one's ability to tune in, but I was really curious to see if it was just me or other people, so I could do it. And I learned that really anybody could learn. And so it's really, I can't say exactly the exact physiological mechanism of what I'm doing. But what I would say is that you can match up I work with, like I was saying, the cycle of sensations, and you can learn to tune in and actually feel and work with the sensations of a headache or migraine, and they have certain qualities. And so I teach people those qualities, and they're varying and variable per person, but then there are enough commonalities that you can describe it and that people can look for that. And so, so there's matching up your touch with the pain. There's matching up your mind with the pain. You can do this with other kinds of pain as well. And working with various qualities that you can feel on the body and that you can begin to recognize, and working with, in the case of migraines, to still what seems to be this pulsing, pounding explosion on your head, right? And so working with the specific points of pain, not with it as a general overall pain, but you can really feel various pulsing points. And when you still each one of those, whether it's one or many, then you can feel also, I know this sounds wild, but a release on the head, and that occurs in the back of the head. And I talk about this exactly and describe it step by step and how to do it on yourself in my book.
In your book? What's the name of the book?
So my book is the Headache Healer's Handbook, and the subtitle is A Holistic Hands-On Somatic Self-Care Program for Headache and Migraine Relief and Prevention. And so that's what the book teaches, which is this kind of holistic, well, the subtitle kind of says it all. But it's a way of working with yourself as a whole person and beginning to recognize not only, working with your pain in progress, but how to prevent it and how to prevent cycles of pain on your head, which is what a lot of people will suffer from. In the United States alone, there's 37 million people that suffer from them annually, and most are women. And also it's not, just that they suffer once. People get them on a regular basis. So, and so that's what I help people with.
That's fascinating to me as an energy worker and an intuitive, and I'm just digging on. I kind of like to vicariously live through my healer friends and to see what you're doing when you're doing your work. And I was just like, oh my gosh, she's got a serious, keen sense. So you're wildly empathic to sense the rhythms of the pain that you're describing. Now, let me ask you this. As an empath and as a sensitive individual, when you first started doing this work, was it hard to separate their pain from your pain? And did you carry some over? And did that take some working on?
For me, no, and I don't know why. But it just has never been that way for me. And then when I teach people how to work on themselves or how to work on other people, whether it's you're working on, someone in your family that you want to help, or you're a caregiver, a practitioner, maybe it's because I teach it that way. I don't know. But I can remember being at energy workshops, and that would always be a question that came up, like, how do I keep from collecting somebody else's stuff? But I think it's not just for, other people's, also your own. And I do teach people how to get rid of it. Because, when you're learning how to release, or when you are, say, releasing pain, you're putting all your energy and attention and your touch into doing that. So you might be holding your hands in one place for a long time, but I also potentially, or it's just that you're collecting it, and so you want to get rid of it. And so when I learned energy work on the rest of the body too, we would always be told to get rid of it, and shake it off, like out of your, like, so I shake out my hands and arms, and I show how to do that specifically too, because you want to really extend through your hands and fingers and get rid of it. And, you, like healers, a lot of times you learn, you shake it to a corner of the room, between the floor and the wall, or I know this sounds weird, but, or, out the window, or some people learn how to shake it in water, but it's just that but it also, so I think it does a number of things. It gets rid of the energy that you've collected, but also of holding your hands in one place for a while, right? So both, but I think it's important to get rid of it. So maybe because I do that, but I think just as far as taking on somebody else's pain, I think that if you keep your body neutral and you keep breathing, keep grounded, so it's like you're doing energy work, but you're also really doing it in a very grounded way. So did that make sense? I know. I just want to say I'm so happy that you're receiving kind of, I know what I'm talking about is pretty far out, but that you're receiving what I'm talking about.
I'm picking up what you're laying down, no doubt. No, this is so interesting because I also am a psychic coach and teacher, and I have very commonly empaths being like, how do I not take on other people's energy? I'm like, I have some techniques, but I don't struggle with that. I've done over 20,000 massages in my 18-year career so far, and I don't take on the energy. I can list maybe 3 times where I became a little too empathic and I merged the lines a little. It became too empathic and it got sad or something with their situation. But no, I don't take on people's energy very much either. So I was going to pick up some techniques from you, which I did, and I'm also going to get your book so I can hand that over to some of my clients, because I know that there's a lot of healers out there that do struggle with that, whether it's taking on someone else's or dealing with their own or not clearing their own or however that is. Our friend Julia in Boulder calls it spiritual hygiene, and I like that term because it's a good way to keep us all cleaned up and well-rounded and grounded out, like you said, going into these energy work practices.
Right. I really love that. Say it again. What was it called?
Spiritual hygiene.
Spiritual.
Yeah, our friend Julia in Boulder will connect with you. We'll connect you with her on Facebook. She's always doing cool stuff and has all kinds of free information and stuff. So, yeah, spiritual hygiene. And she does those classes regularly up in Boulder. And I lived in Boulder, Colorado for 5 years. Andy did too. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of spiritual action going on out there. So it's nice to have someone showing you how to shake it if you need to. Shake it out the window, like you suggested, on the floor, into the water. Well, as a massage therapist, I'll wash my hands, quickly after a massage, and that helps clear a little too.
Yes, I do that too. And then also just like doing your practices in between too.
Yes.
So whatever it is for you, meditating, eating well, getting exercise, breathing. Did I say that?
Breathing's important. We can say it a lot.
So, so doing all that as well so that you can just have your own resilience and strength.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I find this conversation interesting for me because the reason I'm up in northern Vermont right now is because my best friend's husband has brain cancer, and he just had to have surgery. Yeah, not the easiest, but he just had to have surgery a few nights ago. And the night I got up here was the night before his surgery, and he had this crazy migraine, and he was having a terrible time, and all this pressure was building, and you could tell his face was starting to swell, and we're like, okay, like the surgery's, in the morning, but this isn't looking the best. And I am a Reiki practitioner, and I do some energy healing stuff, but I wasn't exactly sure, what to do in that case. And I just kind of let myself, be intuitive. And I gave him a big piece of selenite to hold on to kind of calm things and to absorb some of his energy. And I gave him some Reiki, and then I put just the lightest touch towards like the back of his head and on the side, towards the back of his head, and then on the side of his head. I guess it would have been on his right side, and that seemed to have helped a lot. And he started to calm down, and the pain started to dissipate and move. And I wasn't really sure what I was doing, but I just did it, and it worked out really nicely. It brought him some relief, before his surgery, and then I've given him kind of several treatments since, and he's doing really great now, which is awesome. But I wanted to share that with you, and I was curious about your thoughts, or anyone listening, if they're in that, situation, what you encourage them to do.
Wow, that's very powerful. Well, so you're talking about a surgery that was planned, or this was an emergency that was happening right then?
Well, he's had brain cancer for a while now, and he's already had 2 surgeries. So this one was planned to remove another growth. However, he had all kinds of complications and migraines prior to, about 4 days prior to, where when about 8 months ago when he had this surgery before, he didn't have that. So. Yeah.
So, because the reason I ask is, I work with people who have chronic pain and, or say if you have a migraine from a hangover, but I would never presume to diagnose, and I don't work with patients I have worked with patients who have had surgery, but, if it's ever an emergency situation where there's acute pain or change in symptoms or acute symptoms, then, one needs to consult with their doctor or go to the emergency room, So, there's that. There are people who do have and get migraines as side effects of various conditions. And when they, know what their diagnosis is and they are in an acute situation, then I would, with their permission, with their doctor's permission, I would work on them. And it sounds like you knew just what to do, and like you almost, what you described sounds very similar to the Mundo method. It sounds like you were doing some balancing on the head, and probably in the case when it's such a situation that is diagnosed but acute like that, I would tread very lightly, And it's really hard to say, this was somebody.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but as a practitioner, that probably wouldn't be in my purview. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, mine was mostly just kind of some energy healing and, because I do the Reiki, so it was Reiki. And then it was I just found it so interesting that I was drawn, and you were mentioning, to the back of the head for that.
Yeah,
and it worked out, because he had to take a 2-hour ride to go to where his surgery was. So, it kept him pretty calm before he went there and stuff. So that was good. But it made me so curious. I was like, this just seems to be such a powerful place on the body.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you were able to help him too. And it makes sense that what you said about that he was calmed down. I think I tread lightly, like you said. As a practitioner, it's different because this is somebody in your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was a situation that you knew what was happening, was diagnosed. But, I, again, think it's awesome that you were able to help him. And I know that there was a question in there, but I forgot what it was.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just curious because, you were talking about your method and different places on the head, and I was mostly just so curious about, maybe the back of the head just being such a like a powerful place on the body, and it seems to be something where you were saying you find headache relief or helping people with that.
Yeah. So, well, I definitely work from front to back of the head. So I work with a headache or migraine in the front, and then it releases to the back. So it's really interesting, like I said, that your hands and awareness went to those places, you know, kind of the side, kind of the back, and worked with it. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
That's lovely, Mandy. And I do believe, just like we like to let Spirit lead this podcast, we like to let Spirit lead our sessions when we're healing people and holding space for people and helping people heal themselves. I think that it's a brilliant display of, if your compassion's on point, if you're wanting to help, if they're willing, and it's cool, and like Jan said, everything's in order for the most part. If it's a big medical condition, in which it was, you were assisting. I think that's beautiful that you just let your intuition lead you to certain spaces. Now, this is ultimately energy work. There's many colors and shapes and sizes and names and traditions of energy work, but ultimately, at the end of the day, what it is an intention. And you added to the intention with your physical touch, which adds another layer. And then you added your compassion, which you're just full on energy working right there. And it's brilliant. And you were, being led by Spirit, and you were allowing yourself to be led. And I think that that's half of it too, chiming in and feeling the universe's power, and then handing it over lovingly to a person that's in need, doing God's work there. We're all doing God's work here, just showing up, but that's pretty good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did. It felt good. And it was, it was pre-planned. I was part of his, his kind of care team before the surgery the next day. We just weren't expecting the migraines, the night before or the couple of days before starting to come in. So I just found that all so interesting, and there's so many things that could feed into that. But it was just nice to be of service, and, just wanted to, we have so many healers and energy healers and Reiki practitioners and different people, just to let you know, it's, be of service when you can. And just like Jan said, as long as it's okay and in alignment and you're given we are big on permission here, given the permission, then these things seem to really work and make a really big difference. And we just keep hearing story after story of how energy is really starting to change and heal things.
Brilliant. So are you going to be there for a couple more days, Mandy? Are you going to be there for a little while longer? Or are you heading back to Jersey?
A couple more days, and then I'm going to be heading back down to Jersey. Yep. Mm-hmm. Back to home. But yeah, a couple more days of just holding some healing space here, and it's been going great, and Kyle's been healing like amazing, so that's been wonderful. And yeah, just can't complain. I do have a question for Jan. Jan, in your bio, you were talking a little bit about when you were a teenager and you had kind of an aha moment. I was wondering if you'd be interested in discussing that with us.
Sure. That's the first time that I actually have written about that, or really even talked about it.
Well, we're honored to hold that space.
Damn. Just knowing that I was coming on your show, kind of the floodgates came loose. I'm like, well, this is an opportunity to talk about things in a different kind of way, or in a different way than I have, or reveal something that I haven't before. And so, I think, I'm of the generation, outgrowth of the beatnik generation and the hippie generation. So, a boomer, and don't call me okay boomer.
You're not okay boomer. You're way too hip to be okay boomer. You may be a boomer for age group because of when you were born, but you were way hip. No, you can't be okay boomer.
Thank you. So where was I? So I think we were an experimental generation, and so somehow when I was a teenager, I became, and a young teenager, when I became pretty skeptical of the society that I grew up in. And, people used to get all dressed up going to synagogue. And I think I got a little bit like, why does it have to be so fancy or such finery? And why is somebody else speaking for me? I don't know if I thought that, but somehow I was just sitting there in temple one Saturday, and I got this like I can just communicate with God and AKA the universe myself. Like I felt like something happened, and I just felt this connection, like, okay, I'm covered. And so I would say that part of my search, part of my spiritual search has been sponsored by that. Let's put it that way. By that underlying knowing and trust, I guess. Even though I have plenty of panic moments. It's always a balance.
We all do.
And self-doubt. So, but, something happened. And I was just like, wow. Caught my attention. Somehow I just felt something in my body or felt something in my awareness.
And you just felt in that moment just kind of held by the universe and connected without having to have any other in-betweens or interceptors?
Yes. And at the time I probably wouldn't have called it the universe. I would have said God. Which to me are the same. Or like
me
God
too.
consciousness, universal consciousness, I should say. So, or not.
Yeah, we on the Alchemy Sisters, we like to say whatever kind of higher power or force or imagery or, you like to use, but we feel the energy.
Yeah, so it's kind of more like one of those, I don't know, I mean, if I think about it now, kind of like when you see heavy storm clouds and then there's a shaft of light shining through, huge shaft of light, right? Kind of like one of those if I think about it. I really haven't, So that was part of my path for sure. Just looking for exploring consciousness and community was part of that, and lots of other things.
It reminds me of that energy that you were describing, where you're like, why does everyone have to get into their fancies to go talk to God? Why does it have to be like that? Why does it have to have that energy around it? It reminds me of this documentary I watched called The Weathermen Underground, or The Weathermen, and they were some of the leaders. One of them actually is here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Mark Rudd, but I think that's his name. But there was Bernadine, and there was a couple other ones, and they were like, we don't want your bougie lifestyle. We don't want that bougie. We want community, social acceptance. And when you were having that kind of those thoughts of why does everyone have to get all dressed up to go do something very natural like talk to God, I think that might have been a really awesome opening space for a lot of what we call now the hippies or the hippie movement or even the beatnik movement. Is let's take a look around here and start dissecting what we've been told is normal and start questioning things. And I contribute the revolution we're in right now to the huge stepping stone that your generation gave us. I mean, you guys really broke the mold. And I give shouts out all the time to the revolutionaries. And guess what? In this lifetime, you're hitting up on your second revolution. And that is something to be said. That means you guys had strong motors. You were ready to come in fighting and then stay fighting and leave fighting. And it's just, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I'm glad that, we're still in it and that younger generation is working to change things. But I want to make a distinction between the life path that I took and the Weathermen.
Of course.
Weather Underground, who were pretty militant and as pretty radical, and that kind of wasn't my path. My path was more the spiritual hippie path.
Cool.
And moving to the country and learning how to live a more natural lifestyle and sustainable, and also how to do a lot of things that we didn't learn how to do before. A lot of it by necessity, but we built a town in the middle of basically nowhere from scratch. And learned how to do a lot of things. So it was really, you're talking about whole different, like when you said the weather underground, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. that was one of the reasons where I wanted to get out of Berkeley at the time, actually, because I had been going to school, and then out of school it became a lot more interesting, but I was exploring more the consciousness paths than the political path, although I was anti-war and pacifist, but was exploring it in a peaceful way, in the sense that you become what you want to see. You become the change you want to see in the world, right?
Absolutely. Which is a perfect time to segue into talking about one of my other favorite documentaries. And I'm going to have Jan tell us the name because I'm drawing a blank. It's about the farm, which is a commune in Summertown, Tennessee. I got an opportunity to visit it a few years back. Brilliant space. So cool. And Jan, of course, like she wanted to make the distinction, the Weathermen were a militant violent group that basically gave the government feedback about the Vietnam War, meaning they would blow up government buildings, and sometimes there was people in it, sometimes there wasn't. It was definitely the opposite of what Jan got into in the documentary that Jan's in, which is the hippies leaving Berkeley in some tipped out buses going to Tennessee. And I think you guys did a little tooling around before you got to the space that you ended up meeting, going around teaching the good word. When I was watching the documentary, I'm like, look at them doing the good work, like Jesus walking around and talking to the people. So yes, not to confuse what Jan did with the other radical ends of the 60s, but yes, Jan was absolutely a big mover and shaker in moving that peace space, the commune space, the sustainable living space. That commune is still there today. It's one of the longest running ones in the country.
Correct, yes, thanks. The movie is called American Commune, and it was made by my daughters, Rena Crozier and Nadine Apollino, and it's on video on demand, and so American Commune, is the story about how we did that, how we lived out. We just decided, I think the difference where we were trying to not just talk about how we wanted things to be different, but we wanted to actually do them differently. And so, what did we know? We were college kids. We didn't know how to do a lot of people were, and not everybody, but everybody had different places where they had grown up and things that they had learned. So everybody brought their skills to the mix, and then we all apprenticed to each other. And then people had been nurses or doctors, and they brought their skills. And people were teachers or principals, and people were in construction or in architecture. So we learned from each other, and it was a wonderful. And we had a spiritual teacher, Stephen Gaskin, and we all left from San Francisco in this caravan of school buses. It was very adventurous, but I think a lot of us were just, we were in a place of a lot of turmoil in the country, coming out of the Vietnam War, and a lot of societal changes, and we wanted to see if we could make the world a better place, out of the way of a lot of the turmoil, and actually, like I said, learn how to do stuff and live a more peaceful lifestyle. And that worked for that time. And there are still people there. And what's wonderful is that we are still a community, and I guess we're in fourth generation now. And so, a lot of us are connected by social media. People live all over the country as well as on the land. So
That was a brilliant movement that you guys had there. And I'll just bring up one other character, so to speak, in that lovely documentary. And it's the spiritual teacher, Stephen's, I think, wife, maybe it was the title that she carried with him. Anyway, she went into this spiritual midwifery, and people from all over the world come there to have children. I don't know if they still do, but I'm pretty sure, Jan, maybe you had at least, well, probably both of your children were born there. Because are they twins, your daughters, or are they different ages?
No, I have 3 kids, and I have a girl, boy, girl, and my daughters are 4 years apart.
Okay. I thought either they were close in age or they might have even been twins. But I think her name was, is it
Ina May Gaskin?
Ina
May Gaskin. Yep.
And if anyone wants to Google her, you'll find some really good stuff that she got into there. And were you friends with her, Jan?
Well, she was, yes, and she was my midwife. And there were whole teams of midwives. So I was fortunate enough to be attended in my birthings at home by several midwives each time, and it was a really wonderful experience. And, I think that is at the basis of, and so there are still midwives, and the Farm Midwifery Center is still happening, and they're members of midwife associations and home birth associations. They're either nurse midwives or certified midwives, certified nurse midwives. And so, that part of being empowered in birth and learning to trust your own body, I feel it's very much part of what I do with people when I work with them with headaches and migraines, and also with body work and somatic coaching and body work, which I also do. And I'm helping people unwind trauma. And so I've been, had long time practice in all of those things and training. And I think that it can all be tied up, how we live in our bodies and how we learn how to be in our bodies and what's around us and how we're taught and how we hold ourselves. It influences how we breathe and how we can, how energy and fluids and food and everything, digestion, elimination, it all kind of comes back to this somatic shaping and how we learn how to be in our bodies. And so, I don't know how I got on this topic, but by that a lot of it started in learning how to go into natural childbirth, because you really learn how to trust your body. So it's in what your body's telling you, and you're trusting also other people. You're working with this crew that knows how to see what is happening in your body. And then you see how thoughts and feelings and unsaid things and tension, whatever, in the room or with a partner, you see how those things can affect it. And that's what is in Ina May's book, and what the birthing stories are that different people on the farm contributed, including me, to this book, that you see what people go through kind of on all levels, mind, body, emotions, and spirit, when they birth, and so naturally. And so it's a way of seeing how all those things can affect what's going on in your body. And then, of course, you have all these hormones running through, which also affect what's going on in your body. So it's a, chicken and egg thing, pun intended, I guess.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the word somatic means? I got introduced to that when I moved to Boulder, and there's a school, Naropa, and they were big on somatic. And I'm like, what is it? I still don't really grasp it all. Do you want to go over that with us a little bit?
Yeah. So let's see. Naropa, my teacher has roots there. My teacher, well, I've had several number of teachers in somatics. And one is Richard Strozzi Heckler, and he, back when his teacher was Chogyam Trungpa, way back when, and who was the founder of Naropa Institute originally. But somatics, and then somatics is in the lineage of body as self. they describe it as going back to Wilhelm Reich, and there are lots of, it's a way of working with your body is not purely a machine, so that it honors and recognizes that you are a living body, and what you think and how you feel and how you live in your body, meaning your awareness of it as well as taking care of it, and your emotions, all those things they're all together in making up the self, and that we get shaped by what happens to us in life. Some people say before birth, right? And what happens to us as we're being birthed and as we're being raised, from day one, from minute one, how we're touched and held and thought of and paid attention to or not. And all those things literally shape people. So somatics is the study of that. And so there are different lineages of it, like we're saying. So there's Reichian therapy, and there's bioenergetics, and there's Alexander technique, and there's Feldenkrais, and Aspen patterning, and somatic coaching and bodywork from Strozzi Institute, and Bonnie Brain Bridge-Cohen's mind-body centering, and Emily Conrad Dowd's work in Continuum. There are many, many lineages that work with the body as holding and being the repository of the self. And so if people encounter things that are, we all have our way of shaping to that. So sometimes when people have trauma or pain, whatever it is, they escape, or sometimes they go way inward and tuck somewhere deeply inside, and that area maybe doesn't move or doesn't get attention or gets stuck. So there are ways of actually unwinding that with body work and with breathing and with awareness work and practices. So a practice might be meditation, or a practice might be, this is in the Strozzi Somatics, working with the martial arts staff and being able to move energy through your body and move your body while being centered and grounded. So there are practices for all that. So then you also learn how your body gets triggered and where you go in your body when it gets triggered, and then how to recenter when you are triggered. And so it's over time you build that. And so that's another thing, actually going back to the question that you asked before, is like, well, how do you not pick up stuff? Well, all those things can also help, right? Because you're more able to be aware if you're collecting something, or being able to, have your boundaries if you, so that you don't, or have your grounding so that it can run through you, or you can turn it around, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
So I think we've come full circle.
Good. Thank you for that. Yeah, that helps me see it a lot better. I was thinking that it was more energy work and kind of just tuning in energetically, but it's so much more, the somatic healing. It's, like you said, into the cells. And like you so brilliantly said, sometimes people even believe some of these things are shaped before we're born, which is one of my specialties, which is, since I've been 8, I've been seeing past lives and knowing where I was in past lives, or parallel lives, however you want to look at it. So that's where I go, is into the dimensions before we came into this body, to see if there's any emotions or energetics. I mean, it's been happening since the dawn of time with shamanic work. But I like the definition you gave me of somatic, because I feel like if I can get my head wrapped around it a little bit more, I can pair my ethereal with the cellular work, and I think that will be magical together. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you both do wonderful work.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome to find out about it.
Yeah, that's what I was like, I watched your documentary, your daughter's documentary, and I was like, this woman is fascinating. So, of course, I stalked you on Facebook, and I was like, oh, she's a healer too. Let's get her on Facebook, or let's get her on, I friend you on Facebook, and then I was like, let's get her on the Alchemy Sisters. So we're just so glad to have you with all your wisdom and your grace and your knowledge, and it's a pleasure holding space with you and learning from you. So
Thank you.
Well, I'm just getting impressions of all the times you've been a teacher. This isn't the first time you've sat with people and held space with people in my visions here. So thank you again.
Oh, thank you. Well, no, really, I appreciate being able to go so deep and hope that it makes sense. But I feel like you're receiving it, so I'm assuming your audience and your listeners.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
I think so. Well, the cool thing about the Alchemy Sisters is it's got a little bit of everybody, and no matter how far along you are in your spiritual path, no matter how open you are to certain things, there's something for everyone, and it's all perfect. It's all divine, and we just always encourage everyone to speak their truth where they're at today and, in this moment in time, because it changes and evolves always. And we're just excited that you chose to come on and share some of your truth. Which brings me, we only have about 15 minutes left or so, and I do want to know if there's anything on your heart or mind that you're wanting to talk about or ask about or anything like that.
It can be political, too.
Yeah, it can be anything.
Jan's got some words. I love watching her on Facebook. She's got all the good. I share all of her posts to my pages, my political pages. I'm like, ooh, she's got the good.
Oh, I probably like them then.
Look out. Well, I will point people to my website, which is about healing and headaches, and that's theheadachehealer.com.
Beautiful.
No, I said it wrong. I'm sorry. Theheadachecoach.com. theheadachecoach.com. Like I said, I really appreciate being able to talk about all this. And some things did come up when you were saying that, and now I totally forgot what they were.
Maybe they'll come back.
I was also curious, too. You were talking about, I call it with my clients and people listening and whatnot, I call it practicing your own medicines, ways to deal with triggers that come up or to sustain, some of the healing work that you've done and maintain your wellness. What are some things personally for you that are in your medicine basket that you like to do?
Well, some of the things that I was just talking about. I mean, I cook. And trying, just same things, try and get exercise. I have a Jo practice, a martial arts staff practice. I try and do some, very somatic grounding exercises that I've learned. Trying to see friends, just a little this and a little that, keeping balance. But I think just also getting in nature and having some kind of spiritual practice helps. I think whatever works for people,
Yeah.
And that, whatever makes people feel more comfortable in themselves and more aware. And, now it's really bothering me that I can't remember.
Oh, that's okay.
We're going to have you on again. It'll come back to you, and you make a note, and we'll have you on again. We'll chit-chat again. I have a real quick question for Jan, and I don't know if she's watched this or not, but I'm just curious of her thoughts on it since we were kind of talking documentary. Have you watched Wild Wild Country on Netflix with Osho's?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And that movement was after you guys got things going.
I can't speak to that. I mean, I think there are things that happen in communities that, being that we live in a patriarchal society, but not necessarily even, that are later found to be not okay. And not everybody knows about those, that the things that happen in communes which are like life, where you have charismatic personalities and they abuse their power.
Yep.
So, but what I can say is that when we went to the farm, and I think before you did ask me about the community, and so we did talk about that, and we talked about birthing and everything, but, we really were looking for a different way of living as far as people wanting to work together. And when people do that and you have bonding experiences, like I was talking about, like with, like when somebody, it's kind of small town in a way, but spiritual small town, like when somebody, for example, went into labor, everybody knew about it. Like,
right.
It's like, not everybody was there, but everybody's thoughts were there as far as, well wishes, and people would, bring each other, muffins or help out.
Snacks and
there were just, we really were looking to be of service to each other and to the world at large. So there's something about just that, and people learning to be good to each other. And so, I think the movie, it shows, kind of where people came from, and it really was coming from different places, but they were working together for something bigger. And so it ripples out and can make a difference in the world. Like our thoughts and how we treat each other and our moods and how we are able to be in the world, just on an individual basis makes a difference. So, and then when you're doing these other spiritual practices, like working to be able to be able to be strong in a relaxed body, say for women, for anybody really, but then there's, you want to be able to take a stand for something and not be a pushover. So there's this balance of how do you do that while being centered, right? How can you be passionate and
it's true. How do you be a warrior? How do you be a peaceful warrior?
Right, like walk your talk. Like if we're, there's so much at stake right now. Don't get me started about politics, but we're not
you'll have
all
to come back for it.
But how can we be good to each other in the process, right? And who do I see as being that way? And then balancing that, of course, with who can win. So we won't go there, but I don't want to throw on this.
Well, Jan, I have
balance, right?
It absolutely is the yin yang. It's a symbol for good reason, and this is our Heart Over Ego Radio network, which is our spiritual network. And then, of course, I have another podcast network called Third Eye Political Radio. So if you ever want to state your claim, and I know you've got decades of experience of being exposed to the powers that be, let's call it. So if you ever want to get a soapbox, we will give you as many as you want to stand on, and you can come over there. I'm rounding up all my political friends and trying to get them to come on every once in a while, because there's a bunch of us that do the work every week, but we like to get everyone else's opposing views in general. We even take callers on those shows so the public can call in. And one time, we're very liberal, let's just call it that. We don't necessarily always sit on one side or the other. We're kind of in the middle gray and very open-ended. But we had a Trump lover that came in, that called in one day, and he was like, Trump 2020, and we just pushed mute. We let him say a few things. We let him say his piece because it is a public forum, but we just pushed pause. And that's the cool thing about having your own podcast, is you're in control of who gets to talk. But that's over there for you if you want to come over and visit us there. But this movement that's happening on the planet, I get a little dramatic with my views, of course, because I'm a psychic and I'm also very emotional. But I like to look at Bernie Sanders and his movements, and he's certainly not Jesus Christ, but I see some lovely parallels of the breakdown of construct. They're both Jewish, both what one would call socialistic type, and I see that we are doing some good work, and I guess we'll see on voting day if the good outweighs the evil and if heart supersedes. So it'll all be very interesting, and I'm watching it like it's the Super Bowl. I'm like, whoa, I've never been so interested in politics, but this year it's just got me hook, line, and sinker. So I would like to ask Jan one more question before we end the show, and we'll let Jan talk about whatever she wants for the last few minutes and give everyone her information. But I was going to ask you, Jan, do you find that massage therapy is effective for maintaining, like in between, like if you're a migraine sufferer, would you find that body work is effective or not as effective as stretching? And I know it's different for each person, and each therapist is going to have their own view. But in your experience, would you say that, of course, it's good to stretch, but would you say adding massage therapy in between the sessions is helpful?
Okay, well, this is a whole long piece, and would that I could substitute it for the politics we just talked about. But anyway, it really depends on the headache or migraine. Sure. So I talk about that in my book as well, the Headache Healer's Handbook, because if you have a migraine, then it's pulsing and pounding. And so the last thing that you want to do, you're sensitive to sight, to light and sounds, and you can be nauseated. So the last thing that you want to do is put kind of any kind of movement in there. So if somebody has a migraine, they probably couldn't even stretch, right? So, so you just want to still it. Whereas if you have a tension type headache or the tightness components of a migraine, then you might be able to commit what would work for you, right? If it was yoga or touch work or stretching, you kind of, I think in all those cases, you don't want to go to the extreme. It's really important to listen to your body. So it would be hard to choose one because it's so specific, so, and that's why it's great to learn how to be aware of your body and what it does in patterns as well as in individual times, just being able to tune in and work with yourself while you're either in pain or feel it be able to avert it by if it's building up.
Brilliant. Yeah. I have been doing massage therapy for a very long time, and I definitely, when someone's having a migraine, I definitely don't do a lot of movement. And you've given me some visions of some points and places I can hold if I'm near someone. If they have one, I'm going to practice it on them. So, thank you for that, and we appreciate it. Mandy, do you have any more questions for Jan?
I do not. I'm just so excited that you came on, and I'm grateful to have learned from you, and I can't wait to read your book, and I hope that we can entice you to come in and share your voice, even if you want to do it anonymously over on Third Eye Politics, because it is just a fun platform to speak your truth and lay it out there. So we certainly invite you back for that, and I would love it if you could offer our listeners your website one more time if they want to spend some more time getting to know you and your methods.
Sure. And thanks for your invitation. As they say in New York, we'll talk. And and my website is theheadachecoach.com. theheadachecoach.com.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks again for having me. You're both a blast. I just so appreciate your questions and what you do and being on your show. It's really been so interesting. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we'd love to have you back at the fall before the season ends. We'd like to see what you're getting yourself into in the fall, if anything has changed or made any more new developments. So we'll talk.
Sounds great. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right, everybody. This is the Alchemy Sisters. Myself, Jenny McDaniel. I'm here with my good partner, Mandy Elam. We're here most Mondays. We go on 5 Mountain, 7 Eastern Standard Time. It's about an hour show, and each week we showcase a wonderful healer, a wonderful caregiver, a revolutionary of sorts. So if you want to join us next week, let's see who we have next week.
Next week we have Eugenie, who is an absolutely incredible soul who's very into direct guided meditations, prayers, intentions, and we actually stumbled upon her because she wanted the name Heart Over Ego, and we already had it. And through that process, and we have much to discuss with her. So we're looking forward to having a show with Eugenie next week.
That's us. Next week, this is the Alchemy Sisters, and we are Heart Over Ego Radio. You can find us on all of your favorite podcast applications. Just search Heart Over Ego Radio, and you will be exposed to our 5 shows a week. You will not be disappointed. This is one of them. On Sundays, we do 90 minutes of free readings, all kinds of healing. So get yourself in on some of that. And until next time, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
What if you could change your life? What if the sorrow could become joy and the darkness the light? What if you could heal not only yourself but those around you? Well, you can. This is Alchemy, and these are the Alchemy Sisters. Join psychic Jenny McDaniel and spiritual advisor Mandy Elam for a magical 1-hour journey into esoteric spiritual discussions.